Welcome back to Curtains Up, a historical perspective on drama, and the podcast where we explore how theater from the past continues to shape the stages we stand on today. When we think about comedy in theater, we often think of scripted jokes, witty dialogue, or modern sitcom style humor. But long before that, there was a form of theater built on masks, movement, and stock characters Commedia dell'arte. Today's episode dives into how this vibrant and physical art form began, why it became so influential, and why it still matters for students today. We're honored to be joined by David Alan Roby, a scholar, performer, and educator whose work has deeply explored Commedia dell'arte, both in theory and in practice. He brings a unique perspective on how history, performance, and training intersect in this theatrical tradition. Thank you so much for joining us today, David.
Thank you for having me, Ron.
I'm really excited to ask you these questions.
Great. Yeah, let's do it, man. I love any
All right, let's get
excuse to talk
started.
about this stuff.
Oh yeah, this is exciting stuff. So for my first question, what first drew you to Commedia dell'arte, and when did it become a central focus of your work?
Cool. Thanks. My first exposure to Commedia dell'arte, which I didn't actually know it was that at the time, was in high school. I grew up in a very small town. There were like 8 of us that did the shows. And we all just always did the shows. You know, our drama director just chose the shows because she knew that she would have like the 8 of us, you know? And yeah, I did this really nerdy Commedia dell'arte story called Scapino about this servant who, beats up his master with a sausage. You know, just classic humorous stuff.
Classic slapstick stuff, yeah.
That's it. You know, that scene is like the epitome of Commedia dell'arte, I'll tell you that. Yes. So that's when I first got exposed to the style. Years later, when I was in college and beyond, most of my exposure to this style has just been doing shows, just auditioning for shows, going to workshops, whether they were one-off or whether they were like a series. And just studying anything and everything I could about theater, just like it sounds like you do, and it sounds like your audience loves doing too. That's kind of how I got started. I was like, well, I want to learn everything about theater too. And that is how I got started. What interested me about the style is just this incredibly high level of playfulness. You know, this concept of, there's improv, right? There's improv theater, and that is flying off the cuff, making it almost all up entirely original every single time. And there's something about that. It is so intimidating to me. Also, seriously,
I have some friends who like are in the improv like they have an improv club and they host improv shows here.
okay,
And sometimes they just blow me away with like how like
yeah.
they just go off the like they just come up with something immediately.
Yeah, it's a skill set, and some people have creative freedom when there are no limits, when you can come up with anything. But I've learned about myself and about many other artists that sometimes it really helps to have even just a little bit of structure, a little bit, just sort of boundaries or a theme, or I mean that's why improv uses themes as well, because it's hard to do something from absolutely nothing. And yeah, so I love about Commedia just this like structure, because it does have structure. There are scenes, there are things that work and things that don't work. And that structure combined with, and I'll talk about this later when you ask another question, but I want to introduce this word. Instead of improv, when we talk about Commedia dell'arte, we should really be talking about what I would call responsiveness. It's this classic line, there's no such thing as acting, only reacting, right? So the art of comedy, which is one translation of this term, Commedia dell'arte, is that you are there as a theater artist, live on stage, reacting to what your audience wants. Yeah, man. So then, that's how I got interested in it. I was just very interested in like, oh, these stock characters, like there's this structure that I can just grab and play with. And then eventually, years into my professional theater career, I started working with masks. And something about that just really woke something in me that I thought was so challenging and so fun. and so practical. You know, to summarize all that up, I learned about this because I did a bunch of gigs and I said yes to everything. And I went to a bunch of workshops and learned as much as I could about everything theater. And, and eventually found this physical theater school in Europe that was taught in English for the most part that I went to. And that's when I, you know, after all those gigs, I was like, I think I really want to do more of this. I was at a turning point in my career where I had to choose. Okay, do I keep doing stuff in Seattle, in the States? Do I keep just going in the trajectory I'm going? Or do I take a brief break to become a specialist in a thing and then bring that thing back? Or go somewhere else with it? And I landed on the latter. I went and I really wanted to just learn more about this Commedia dell'arte
Yeah.
thing.
I honestly think the beauty of Commedia, or how would you say, is it Commedia dell'arte, or
You
like
can say it how you say it. I ain't gonna get picky.
okay.
I probably say it wrong to somebody too.
I just think like the beauty of Commedia is just like how free it is, but at the same time how helpful it is. Because like we talked about with how improv is like off the top of your head, just anything that comes to your mind, like it just happens, right? I think the idea of Commedia, where it has like that preset, those preset characters and that preset scene, or not scene but preset like theme, so that you kind of know what you're getting into, but at the same time it'll be a different show every time. That's what's important, because it also pushes actors to their limits. You give them a stage, you give them a setting, now you're giving them uh now you're giving them liberty to find the story.
Yeah. Yeah, you nailed it. That's it. You know, and you know, the coolest part about the history of Commedia dell'arte is that there's a lot of like, and if you know, if you bump up around like how to go back to your other question, like how to say this, you can always just say Commedia and then everybody knows. Just say
Yeah.
Commedia, just stop there, it's fine. And then everybody knows it's all good. Is that, you know, it started with just troops working together. You know, this style was, as far as we know, at least in Europe primarily, the first time in that part of the world where theater traveled by nature. And so it's these people that loaded up these wagons and traveled in these wagons, or however they traveled, man. And they would just search for gigs. And if they didn't find gigs, if nobody would hire them, they would pick a street corner during a carnival and do their thing and hope that people paid them afterwards or noticed them and then hired them to play at their place. You know, I think there's something about that is really fresh. And they had to do a lot of, they had to be responsive because that's how they got fed. But then what
That's
that
how they
also,
got their money, yeah.
that's exactly right. And what that turned into is then theater artists, again, really zooming in on this part of the world, Europe, started exploring different ways to build theater. That's when certain people started writing scripts for these Commedia dell'arte plays, and they started, because at the beginning, nobody was writing any of it down. They were just kind of working with what they had. Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like scripts defeat the purpose of like the art style of Commedia. Like it's like the having a theme is fine, but once you give it a script, it goes away from the element that makes Commedia. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For listeners who may be new to Commedia, how would you explain what makes it distinct from other theatrical forms? Although we already talked about it a little bit.
A little bit. I would say, man, like a couple things primarily. One is that it connects to every other form of art. Because it's all about the troupe. It's about the specialties of the people doing the art, right? Doing the comedy, doing the theater. You know, another translation of this term, Commedia dell'arte, is artisans of comedy, professional comedians, people who are saying like, okay, what is the best way that with what I'm working with, my body, my voice, my environment, what's the best comedy I can create? You know, and then of course the missing
What can I
pieces.
bring to the scene that makes it pop?
Yeah, and more specifically, and I think this is part of what makes it so unique, is what can I bring to this troupe of actors? What can I bring to this theater company that will enhance the company as a whole, that will help all of us eat and survive and be loved and get more gigs? So those are a couple of things in tandem that I think make it really unique, is that it's extremely demanding work, just physically. When it's done well, it is so exhausting, and you have to be so physically disciplined. Um,
For sure, because
and
you have to use your entire body. You have to like just use every single thing at your disposal to make a story good.
yeah, and when you put a mask on your face, the coolest part about that for me, I remember the first time I did that, all of my like amateur actor habits had to go away. I couldn't use my face anymore. I couldn't use it.
Your body, you have to use your body. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something about that is very difficult and extremely demanding and takes a lot of practice, but is also really freeing, because then you know that no matter what, almost no matter what you do, the audience is going to see your character for who they are, because you cannot change the character's face. They will
Absolutely
look
not.
angry or in love or hungry or whatever they're going to look all the time, and you cannot change that. And that's cool. I can't mess it up. That's cool.
Masks play such a powerful role in Commedia.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I did that on purpose, of course. Uh, the best part is that you, the actor, you have to disappear. You are not allowed to be you anymore.
You have to like be the character now. Yeah.
You have to do it. Because if you don't, if that ego gets in there, you'll look like a fool. It won't fit with the whole troupe.
You look like a fool, but that's not part of the truth.
Right, not the good fool. You'll look like the
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
fool.
yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. And the cool part about another cool part about working with masks is that because you have to rely on the rest of your body, many of us, when we are being, oh man, there's no nice way to say this. Well, when we're being dishonest, or when we are
Yes.
disguising our feelings, hiding our feelings or our truth, our giveaways tend to happen in the face. That's where we tend to have our giveaways. We
Sure.
have
Yeah.
ticks in our
Absolutely.
face.
Because like, even if you're lying, you're gonna like try to avoid eye contact. You're
Hmm.
going to look downwards. There's a lot of things you do to avoid that like stare.
Yeah, but physically you cannot do that with a mask on your face. You are forced to be honest, truthful, and here's the coolest thing that masks do, I think. They force you to be focused, because you can't see everything. You usually, when you're wearing a mask, you don't have peripheral vision. So you actually have to like physically turn to see your stage partner. You have to like turn your head, but then it's like, oh, I have to show the audience my whole face. So then you have to turn back. It takes a lot of practice. It's not intuitive.
I think masks like moving on to that like adding on to that, sorry. I
Yeah.
think another part of the mask as well is taking away so much of like the native training that a lot of actors have, because when you
Mm.
when in just like plain acting, when you're cheating out, all you have to do is plant yourself and look a little bit to the left, right? Like that's it, and you can
Yep.
see everything. With a mask, it's covering, so you can only see that, and
Yeah.
you have to look back at the audience. So it's like
Yeah.
it makes cheating out really hard and does add on to the challenge, which is what you were saying. So
And this is part of why Commedia, to go back to whatever question that was, of what makes it special, right? Because like there's the visual art. Somebody has to physically sculpt these masks. Somebody has to paint them in a very specific way, right? And also that concept of kind of cheating out and of like throwing your focus around. There's a lot of dance and choreography in Commedia. The body has to work a certain way, and I mean, dancers know this. Like, you have to position your head and your neck in a certain way. You have to look in certain directions as you're doing certain moves, and it's exactly the same with masks. But it's
not exactly the same, but it is
similar,
very similar. It is very similar.
similar discipline.
Yeah. Um, what are common mistakes actors make when approaching comedic characters for the first time? Like, what would you say is like the most common thing you see?
Yeah, this is a really good question. Number one, too many words, talking too much. It's weirdly, it's actually some of the same pitfalls that many amateur improvisers go through. Is like trying too hard to say something funny. Um, you know, and I think we see that, and you'll know that that's happening, that somebody's putting that pressure is being put on an actor, because they'll start like yelling a lot on stage, just constantly yelling, or they like just won't stop talking. And I think that's just something to try and check in with yourself and be aware of when you're using words on stage. Ideally, and again, I'm talking as somebody who is a fan of Commedia, to say the least, ideally, it should
I think you
be.
can give yourself a little more credit.
Ah, shucks, thanks. Ideally, whatever is happening on stage should be universal. Everybody in the world, no matter the language they speak, should be able to watch what's happening and understand the story. They should know who gets along and who doesn't, and who wants what, and who has what hidden where. They should know all of that just by the way you're using your body. So I think, because of the common pitfall that dare I say, all of us who are starting as actors, we just go to the words first. And frankly, if we pay attention to ourselves when we are audience members, the parts we love the most are the parts between the words. When we're watching things happen or hearing things happen, noises,
Right,
sounds, interactions.
like the emotions that are able to be conveyed by body movements, for example, are way more important than rambling or just like keeping on talking. Because obviously lines are important, right? They keep a show
Yeah,
going. But whenever I go to watch a show, for example, I always find myself looking at how the connections between two actors work, like how two people in real life people can make bonds between characters in the show work no matter what's happening. And I think that's the important part.
that's it. And no matter how many shows you've done that week or even that day, right? No matter what's happened, you got to
You gotta
be
keep on doing it. Yeah.
you got to keep on doing it. You got to be truthful. You got to be true to the character. You got to tell the story. And yeah, so to combat that beginner tendency of using words, try and do it with your body. See what happens.
This experiment, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my answer to that question.
All right. Why does Commedia dell'arte still matter today, especially for young actors and students?
Cool. I think, having studied Commedia a lot, and being fully aware that the concept of archetypes or of stock characters is inherently problematic. That's problematic. When you try to make humans universal, a lot of people are going to get pissed off, because it's never going to be totally accurate.
It's not that simple because there's a lot of differences. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think historically, to get to that history piece, Commedia dell'arte, the original actors in Commedia dell'arte troupes, the actors became famous for the characters they were playing, right? So they were actually known. Some of them were known for their actor names. Most of them were known as their characters. Like, people kind of, they were one and the same.
Okay.
They were one and the same. So a lot of these character names that we use, all of the character names that we use for Commedia, are names that an actor created once and made famous once. So that was like a real person that made Scapino, that made Puccinella, that made Brighella, that made Pantalone. Like, these were individuals who created these characters, and they became so famous. So I think...
Are you saying that they were like the characters were named after them, or like they created the character which was named later and then got popularity?
They created the characters, and then the characters became popular. They invented these
Okay,
names.
sorry.
So this is what I think is something that could be really useful for Commedia now, is as a tool for inspiration, which is what it was originally. Actors looked around, and they looked at people, and they said, well, what kind of story do we want to tell, and who do we need in our real world to tell it? Well, that guy's a greedy jerk, so maybe I'll make a character about that guy. Yeah, and maybe we'll talk about how lame that is. Let's do that. Let's make him super mean, super greedy, unrealistic, so that we won't get in too much trouble, so that nobody can watch us and be like, wait, that person's pretending to be
recognize
King
that.
Joseph or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I talked about this in an episode,
Oh,
not recently. It was a decent time ago.
okay.
But in medieval times, there used to be this like theater ban almost. Like theater almost died during the medieval times
Yeah.
because they didn't like the topics that theater presented,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And especially in like Greek and Roman theater, there used to be so many shows that were just allegories for real life. Like there were
Yeah.
so many shows, especially in Greece, that were like because in ancient Greece at the time there was a lot of emphasis on gods, right? Like, oh yeah, if you
Yeah.
don't like they are integral to our life, and if you mess something up, it's over for you, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of there's a lot of like in the shows there's a lot of pointing fun at it, to
Yeah.
say so like th- and I just think that's because it was banned in medieval theater, and commedia art is, I think, precursor to Renaissance around that time.
Yep.
It's since they're just leaving the medieval age, obviously going to be scared of that censorship, right? They almost died. So I think it's really cool to like note the parallels, basically.
Absolutely. And like you reference, I think of the play of Hamlet. Okay, this is a really good example, right? Because there's a play within a play. There's the players, and they're performing a thing for the king. And if they don't perform in a way that the king likes, or if they say something too offensive or real, yeah, they're literally dead. They literally get killed right there in the moment. No one wastes time. Or maybe they'll lock them up and they'll make a show out of their death, which is probably the worst death an actor could ever have. It's like, I don't want my death to be a show. It's supposed to be pretend. But like, for how to make this Commedia useful now, it's about this. It's the technique required. It's the instinct you need to build to respond to the audience, to respond to each other. It's filling your tool bag with tools that you can pull out anytime you need them. This is what troops did. This is what they did. They're performing on the street, and they're in the middle of a scene, and they start noticing people walking away. Maybe they're doing like a really romantic scene, okay? And a lot of people are like, oh, yawn fest, and they start turning and walking away. Then some people, somebody, quote unquote, backstage, they didn't have that, they were on the street, but somebody who wasn't in the scene would jump in the scene and go to some other random part of the script that they may or may not even have, right? They know how the story's going to begin, they know how it's going to end. They probably have a couple of moments in the middle to get there, right? But they don't know what the order is going to be. So somebody jumps in and maybe tries, I don't know, they're like, oh, the romantic couple, here's your spaghetti. And they start like doing all this pratfalls and physical comedy. That actually might have stopped those people from walking away, right? Those people might have been like, oh, wait, no, I love this stuff. I love it when they look like idiots and fall on their butts. That's good. I like more of that, right? And so those are the tools, right? But again, notice how all these tools are the troops tools, the ensemble's tools. They're not actually individuals. I think that's the most useful thing anyone could learn, is there is no such thing as a one-person Commedia dell'arte show. No such thing. Impossible, won't work no matter how hard you try.
Absolutely. I actually think that's also just funny to think about. Just like how like it's like a really like tragic scene, for example, and then it just comes back to life or something. Like I think the idea behind that is so funny, and also why you need other people for comedy to work, because it's not a solo thing. You need people to keep the show moving if you are in the middle of a scene, because if there's like, especially if you're solo, right, and you see people walking away and you need to change the subject, it's really hard to do that when you are in the middle of a topic.
Yeah.
So having someone else jump in and help you do that is really important, and I think that's really good point.
Yeah, and what's cool about that, and again, really useful for all of us who do theater, is it's the ability to allow yourself to be interrupted. Knowing, after you get to know each other, knowing that you've got each other's best interest in mind, right? It's okay if a fellow actor, it like totally derails what you're trying to do, if they're actually going to make you all look better. Like, that's actually what we all need. We need to tell the story really well, and we need to look good, okay? So, if somebody interrupts you to make that happen, it's so useful to learn that technique of just like taking that feedback and just letting it go. Just, all right, you know what? You're right. Let's all just keep going with the
especially
story.
especially for like prime comedian, because they're everybody's concern was getting food, right? So if somebody interrupts you, it's not because they hate you, it's because they want bread.
It's survival. It's survival.
Yep. And then for my last question, what advice would you give to a high school or college student encountering Commedia for the first time? Like
Cool.
they just saw it and they want to try it out, similar to you.
Cool. I'm going to get super simplistic like this in honor of Commedia dell'arte. I'm going to make it way too simple. When you first start with Commedia dell'arte, do what you're told. Do what your gut tells you to do. Okay, which means you kind of got to get yourself in a place where you can listen to yourself. And flush your ego way down the pipes. Okay, don't worry about the way that you look, because you will look stupid. You will sound stupid, okay? But remember that it's about context. Like many of us have learned or will learn, it really is the people that work really hard to make themselves look good on stage that look the worst. It's the ones that learn how to blend into the ensemble and into the story, that know their place in the story. Those are the actors that look the best, that just like fit into the world. So yeah, flush your ego down the toilet. All anyone cares about is that you're trying your best. Okay, so just do it, man. Just do it. Does that gut instinct feel wrong? Just do it. Just follow your gut. Just try it, man.
I feel like that's also like a really good point as well, because like you know, there's always going to be that one person who's trying their best in the script to like stay to the source material. Like if they don't do this, they like freak out, or like, you know, not to throw shade or anything. It's just that like sometimes there like there's obviously different types of actors, right? There are some people who want to follow this archetype, and some people who just go with the flow. And I think the people who go with the flow
Yeah.
and find out the way to make them, like their actor self, fit along with the script naturally and make them work well with their character, those are the actors you like to come and watch again, because they show up everywhere, and they can fit in anywhere and make it very like a malleable character. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. You know, it's so rewarding to watch somebody play in skin that's not theirs. You know, it's so cool when somebody can do that. And that's why I think...
And then make it work.
And make it work. And I think a majority of what it is, and I guess one more piece of just advice for just theater people in general, but especially those who are getting started. Yeah, the lines and the choreography and the blocking, all of that is very, very important. Like, that is important, okay? And don't neglect your process, okay? And what I mean by process is I encourage you all to experiment. I still do this. The last show, the most recent show that I did, I tried techniques that I've never tried before to get myself in the zone, okay? And for that show, it worked, man. So think about those moments before you're on stage, those moments before you're in character, and try and figure out what is going to help you be the most ready, the most open, and the most prepared. All of those things at the same time. Like, man, I had this professor who used to say this most obnoxious thing. He always said, like, but it still haunts me because it's useful, darn it. He would say, you don't know what's going to happen, but you have to make it happen. That is the difficulty of being an actor, is that you have to say the lines. And you have to convince yourself that you don't know what you're going to say.
Every show is different. But there's always going, like, because every show is different, there's going to be one thing that probably goes wrong, or something that's never happened before.
Yeah.
But no matter what you have, like, the show must go on. That is the saying, that the show must go on.
And the flip side, there are also going to be times in your life when the show is not very different. when you've performed it 10, 50 times, and you still need to make it fresh, and you still need to make it new, believably new. And I think the only way to do, well, many would disagree, but for me, I've learned it's very useful to focus on those moments before I'm in character, to put my mind and my body in the space where I can just play. Just play.
That's not a bad idea because you can. It also gives you like fresh brain space to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I think so.
and that's all my questions. Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode. We're incredibly grateful for you to just share your insight, experience, and passion for Commedia dell'arte. So thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today.
Thank you, Ron. I really appreciate being here. Thank you very much.
Today's conversation reminds us that theater isn't just about scripts and stages. It's about movement, collaboration, risk taking, and understanding human nature. Even centuries later, Commedia continues to challenge us to be bold, physical, and fully present as performers. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow this podcast, share it with a fellow theater student, and let us know what theatrical traditions you'd like us to explore next. Until then, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep the curtain rising. This has been Curtains Up, and we'll see you next time.